I don't think you can prove the existence of God through merely formal logical demonstrations. I think you can prove the limitations of human reason in this manner. You can reach a high level of formal validity or valid argument, but the God that you might end up with may be an unfeeling, unresponsive God who is more of a mechanical hypothesis than a breathing and living personality. I think that the idea of the proof for God is in the pudding, not in the thinking. And I think that here one has to rely on a kind of submission, and that's what the word Islam means, but it's a submission that's not unreasonable, but it's not a matter of mathematical or formal or logical proof, but rather it's a matter of coming into an engagement with something that's sometimes overwhelming, sometimes comforting, ongoing and abiding, a sense of power, a sense of presence, a sense of worth, a sense of something that's stronger than oneself. And I think that this is where subjectivity is tremendously important in this. But it's a shared subjectivity, it's a public subjectivity, and sometimes we call it religious community. And so here's something that's probably sloppy from a strict academician's viewpoint, not a religious studies academician, mind you, but some kinds of academicians. But it's really there. And this is where I go back to Pascal and people like that, but also to such ideas as some of the mystics will have of the sense of the presence of God, or of the overwhelming sense that Otto speaks of in the idea of the holy, of the mysterium tremendum, that can be tracked throughout history and throughout many literatures in the world, of a kind of religious a priori, which doesn't give us necessarily specific theological and philosophical points, but as the raw material for an overwhelming experience. I'm not now obviously able to get into the whole question of subjectivity, objectivity, and experience, and relation to whether it's a primal experience or whether it's an interpreted experience, or everything is culturally conditioned. All of these things are possibly simultaneously true. But the proof for God would seem to me to be the focus on an intellectual matter. It's a little bit like the difference between two types of Muslim that Clifford Geertz writes about at the end of his wonderful book, Islam Observed, Religious Development in Morocco and Indonesia, where, as I remember, he's sitting on a plane with a young Moroccan gentleman who's flying to America to go to school or get a job, something like that. He has the Quran in one hand and a glass of scotch in the other. And thus the two are balanced, the traditional teaching and wisdom and decorum and ethics, and the international, the global world, the comfort of material goods. And he's concerned about his Islam, and he's concerned about his modern side, and he sees them as at war with each other, as I recall. Yet his father or his grandfather is very different, and is still very, very deeply engaged with the spiritual tradition of Morocco as Muslim. And Geertz says that whereas the elder is held by his faith, the younger person is desperately trying to hold on to a faith. And I think in a way to understand what's going on is what is the difference between somebody who's held by the tradition and it's there and it's Grundlage, it's basic, it's foundational, and one who is struggling to prove the tradition and so forth. And that's one of the dilemmas of modernity.